Jenny here, and today I have a tutorial for you that's very like watercolor 101. And so this would be the sort of thing that maybe you just started painting, maybe you have your like bag of art supplies in your hand, fresh from the art supply shop, and you're just like, yes, I'm ready to paint, and I don't know how. Or maybe you've opened those art supplies, you've been painting for like a week, and you're like, this is going okay, but there's just all of this weird watercolor shit, and I don't know how to manage it. So this is about how to put down your paint in a way that gives you predictable-ish results. Okay, so let's start with the basics. So first we're gonna wet our surface. Paint will travel most evenly across a damp surface. It will also kind of stay within the parameters that you're wetting. So you can actually, go around some pretty complex shapes and it'll only color where it's wet. It stops at the edge of your puddle. So now I'm taking some quinacridone magenta and I'm just deliberately spreading it across the surface, and see where you can see the paint kind of concentrates. I'm just making sure that that's being spread out. And it'll also kind of spread out on its own too, just the kind of flow of water. And do keep in mind that when you are using, you're adding water to your paint, so you will lose some of the vibrancy. So that first swatch isn't as bright as I would have wanted it to be. So on the second one, I'm doing a gradient between two colors. So I've got my transparent Pyro Orange that I'm putting down. And you can see that I've put it across some wetter paper, so you can see it spreading a little more than that first swatch did, especially right here. So now I've got my quinacridone red, and they're meeting in the middle, but I want it to be nice and smooth, and maybe I'm being a little bit perfectionist-y, which you really shouldn't do, but I am anyways. And I'm going here in the middle, trying to make sure that we have a nice even shift. Usually I'm not this, like you'll see later in the video that I keep going back and messing with stuff, which is one of my tips to tell y'all not to do, but I'm like, no, it's for the viewers, it's for YouTube, it has to be perfect. Okay, so here you can see I'm sopping up some of that paint that's kind of collected at the corners of our little square, and that's something that's really common. If you don't do that, there's a chance it could do a backwash. All right, so solid and our gradient. So 2 simple washes. Okay, so now I want to have it to where we put down color and it just fades to just the white of the paper. So I'm putting down something damp first so that it can dry while I do other stuff. So now I'm putting down the paint first, and then I'm gonna fan it out with just water. And this is what I do most commonly. There's multiple ways to do this, but I find this to be the most intuitive. But you will see I didn't get the most, at that top part, it kind of bleeds out a little farther than the bottom. So if I would have sat and worked with it some more, I probably could have got it completely even. So on this one, I'm just trying to do like a circle and have it kind of fade out on all sides. So put down the paint, and then I'm just softening the edges with water. And sometimes you can get where the paint stains the paper a little bit. Of course, it depends on the color and it depends on your paper. So I am using a little bit more pressure, so I am kind of lifting that first little bit that's settling in the paper. And then I'm taking a paper towel and I'm softening the edge, kind of taking up that last little bit so it'll give it a cleaner fade. Now I'm going back to that part I wet at the very beginning of this sequence, and you can see it's very slowly and softly kind of creeping out. So that's another way, and that actually gave us the most predictable results of all 3. All right, wetting the surface again, because now we're gonna work with granulating pigments. So if you don't already know, a granulating pigment is where certain colors, like ultramarine blue, I'm using right here, the pigment particles themselves are larger, and they end up separating from the binder, and they create this like grainy effect that it's really textural and it's really cool, and I like it a lot. I think it's what makes watercolor special, but they can be slightly harder to work with and to make them even. So these would be really important to put down that base, like flood your paper and then let it dry a little bit. And I'm just doing the same things you saw me do with all the other pigments I used before, which were staining pigments, which tend to be easier to get even. So I'm using cobalt teal here, and I'm just fading it down, using the paper towel to wipe up that excess paint. And you do see me working a little bit more with these than you do those other ones. So I use this ultramarine pink, and like this whole video, it's like one of the things is you gotta know your paints before you start doing like major stuff. But this paint I've never actually used before, and you can see that I'm really struggling to make it even. It's just, this is a really distinctive, probably like more, I don't know, I would call it like maybe a paint that is a little bit more like advanced or something. I don't know. I had a hard time working with it, making it nice and even, but maybe you're not even supposed to make it nice and even. I definitely want to play with this some more after doing this swatch. I'm not typically drawn to lighter watercolors though. That's why I've never messed with it. But there you see me. Just keep on working with it. So yeah, this is a weird one. Still going. All right, so on this one, I took a staining pigment, quinacridone violet, and then I put that cobalt teal in there, and the colors just kind of separate within itself, and it just makes a really cool effect, and it dries where you can kind of see the colors that are separated. You can see it really good in these couple examples from my sketchbook. And then here's an example in my own work how I use granulation and that separation of pigments for a background. Okay, let's get weird. All right, I am wetting the surface, and then I'm gonna do some wet on wet technique. So these, you're gonna get a lot of watercolory goodness. You can't really predict how these are gonna end up turning out. So just using a quinacridone red and a cobalt teal, and you can see how the cobalt teal doesn't move quite as much as like this quinacridone violet that I'm putting down. And then I'm just dropping some water on top of it, so that's going to create some blooms and some backgrounds. This is Pyrrole Red Light, one of my favorites. And just notice how differently the colors kind of creep across the surface of the paper over the water. And I mean, the moral of the story is you really got to know your paints before you use them. They're all going to do different stuff and give you different effects, which is, it's just cool. So this is just all quinacridone magenta, and I'm really pulling it up in that corner to show a back run when it dries, because yeah, when you don't have your paint evenly, that's when you start getting, you know, those kind of watercolor effects, so whether you want that or not. So now I'm dropping some of this teal into that mixture and some quin violet into the mixture, and then I put a drop of water, so you can just see how you can get different effects by kind of manipulating your paint like that. So, you know, sometimes you want those kind of weird watercolor things, sometimes you don't, but it's important to have it be intentional. So you can see all the cool effects we got when it dried. Alright, well, I hope you found something in there that can improve your painting experience. When I outlined this video, I was like, oh, I had it like down to a science, and I had all my little bullet points where it's like, okay, first I'll do this, this, and this, and it's gonna give me these results. And like, there's a reason why they call it an art, not a science, because it's like, yes, you put down the paint a certain way and it should do the certain thing, but it really kind of does its own thing, and like everything is like, there's so many variables, your paper, your pigments, you know, just the mood of the art gods that day. It's just, you know, it just be what it be. But I think that once you kind of have a basic idea of how paint works and watercolor works, then it can give you slightly more predictable results. But really, this is what I like about watercolor, is just that it's kind of weird, and it gives you these just like weird I don't know. I don't want to say inconsistencies, because that's not like a good word. It gives you these like just unique, natural happenings. What is the word? These like natural, like just marks of just this like randomness. Like, you know, in Jurassic Park, where the guy, Jeff Goldblum, is like putting the water on her hand and it's like falling off in different ways or whatever. That's like watercolor. That's it. Watercolor is just like Jurassic Park. So there you go. That's why it's the most exciting painting medium out there. So with that knowledge in mind, go out there and go make some cool stuff. But do subscribe to my channel and follow me on all the social medias first. Alright guys, I'll see y'all later. Bye!